Oh yeah. Right, it's in a bit. Hiya, my name's Riley. Today I'm going through preventions of injuries for my assignment. So firstly I'm going to go through extrinsic risk factors, which are basically something that can cause damage to your body although it's outside and not in your control. Then I'm going to go through a few examples of extrinsic risk factors, and my first example will be in the environment. So examples of the environment are if the surface is slippery, if rocks are loose, or if there's a sharp object on the field. And these all cause different dangers. So for example, if a surface is slippery, you may slip onto your arm and maybe fracture your ulna, or get an open fracture on your lower arm. If there's a sharp object on the field, for example, glass has been broken because you're playing on a football pitch in a park, you could actually get a laceration on your leg, say if you go into a sliding challenge and it sticks into your leg. And if rocks are loose, you could actually maybe fall from the rocks and fracture your leg, for example your tibia bone. And now, how can the environment prevent injuries? If you go around the environment before you're playing sports and you actually do a risk assessment of the place and make sure that it's safe for people to participate, you're going to prevent a lot of injuries. Now, my second example is equipment, and equipment can be old and faulty. For example, if you're playing cricket with an old cricket bat, you could maybe snap the bat and the ball could follow through into your hip, maybe causing a broken hip. Or the remaining piece of your bat which just flew off could hit somebody and could actually cause like bruising around the eye if it's hit them in the head, or maybe a fractured skull. And also you want to be using the correct equipment for the correct sport. For example, you don't want to be wearing a rugby scrum hat when you're playing cricket, when you're batting, because it won't protect your skull properly, and if the ball hits you in your head, you're more than likely to get a fractured skull. Now, how can equipment prevent injuries? As I've just said, you want to make sure you're using the correct equipment to prevent any injuries, such as a cracked skull, as I've already said, and you want to make sure that the equipment is new, or at least in good working condition. So do that, check it first, and if it is not good to use, make sure you don't use it and replace it as soon as possible. Thirdly, it's clothing and footwear. So you must wear the correct clothes and footwear to prevent injuries for you and other participants. For example, if you're playing football, you ought to wear football boots instead of rugby boots, because rugby boots have bigger studs, and if you go into a sliding challenge with them, the opponent is at extreme danger because the studs are big and could cause a broken leg. How can clothing and footwear prevent injuries? If you are wearing the correct footwear, for example, as I've already said, the rugby boots for football, you're more than likely to prevent an injury, not just on you, but on somebody else. And then if you're wearing the correct clothing, for example, say if you are an extreme mountain biker and you're wearing a helmet, that'll prevent you, if you're falling off the bike, from getting concussion or a cracked skull. Now I'm going to go on to other sports players, and point of other sports players, you want to make sure you're working with the same physicality, sometimes the same gender, although it doesn't matter at different ages. As you're younger it tends to not matter, but as you get older it does tend to matter as the physicality comes into effect. And also you want to make sure that you're playing at a similar skill level to yourself. Now, similar skill level is purely, so say like you don't want a professional player playing Sunday League, because Sunday League's a lot more rough and they're not built for that, and they could actually end up getting in a bad challenge. Or physicality, so you don't want to be playing rugby if you're like 5'10" and weigh about 6 stone against somebody who's like 6 years older than you and is 6'4" and about 12 stone, because it could put you at risk. And also gender, it's mainly for older ages, as women tend to become less physical, as I've already gone into. Now, How can other players prevent injury? Now, other players can prevent injury by having the correct mindset when you're going into a game, not going into a game angry, or being at the same skill levels as I've already said. Now I'm going to go on to coaching and instructions. Now, coaching, a coach must have the correct qualifications, for example, a DBS check when they're teaching people under 18, purely to make sure that you're safe from, because the person might be a paedophile or could actually have past criminal convictions, and the correct coaching badges to make sure you are qualified to coach that sport. Now, instructions is extremely important, as if you are not taught the correct techniques, you could actually be, say, kicking a ball wrong. So if you're trying to curve a ball, you could actually be kicking it wrong, causing the cartilage in your knee to be worn down. And how can coaching and instructions prevent injury? Now, if you make sure your coach is safe and qualified to work with you, that's going to prevent any injuries. Maybe not, well, yeah, it could be injuries, as they could, again, coach the wrong instructions, as I've already said. And instructions, as I've just said, are extremely important. Now I'm going to go through gait analysis. Now, gait analysis basically allows you to pick out and assess your walking and running. Now, you cannot help the way in which you run and walk. Say, like if you have a medical condition, such as you've got bow legs, you can't help the way that you run and walk, although it could cause injuries when you're running. For example, as I've already said, the cartilage in your knee could be grinding, as there's not a lot left. Now I'm going to go on to intrinsic risk factors, which is something that you can control that can cause injury. For example, as I've already shown, the wrong technique. Now, poor preparation. This is basically not warming up correctly, eating too much food, consuming too much alcohol, or in some cases, drug consumption. Now, how can poor preparation cause injury, and how can we use it to prevent injuries? Now, you want to make sure that when you are going into sport, you warm up correctly, which I'll go into further detail on later. You want to eat a healthy diet to make sure you're not getting LDL build-up in your arteries, which could cause heart attacks. And you want to make sure you're not taking drugs, as drugs are not only illegal and can end you up in jail, but they also cause risks such as heart attack, especially if you're taking illegal drugs such as cocaine, as it increases your heart rate. And finally, alcohol consumption. A lot of injuries to people come when they're drunk. For example, stumbling about the street, falling, and they could actually crack their head open when they hit it. Now I'm going to go on to inadequate fitness levels. So this is basically doing sport when you're not actually fit enough to do it. For example, doing a Tour de France when you've only just started riding bikes and you were doing it to lose weight. How can you prevent injuries caused by inadequate fitness levels? You're going to want to gradually build up the intensity that you're working at, just to make sure that you're not going to push yourself too hard and maybe get dehydration and become sick. Overuse and previous injuries. Now, this is extremely important when you're taking it into sport, as you want to make sure that you are not putting yourself through too much, which is overuse. So you want to make sure that you have the right amount of time to rest. And previous injuries, you want to take into effect, if you've ever, say, fractured your tibia, that it's not going to happen again. How can we prevent injuries that occur during exercise? Well, you can make sure that you have the right amount of rest to prevent overuse injuries. So after you've had a hard session at the gym, or after you've had a long session at football, you want to make sure that you're going to cool down and give yourself at least a day's rest. Or, for example, if it is the gym and you go in the next day, you want to make sure that you have a rest to make sure your muscles can actually repair. And then previous injuries, you're going to want to make sure that, say, like if you fractured your tibia, or if you've got not as much cartilage in your knee, you want to make sure that that's safely protected. Now, poor technique, as I've went through before, it occurs due to poor coaching and lack of fitness levels. Now, lack of fitness levels. I mean, once it comes to the end of a match, when you're actually blowing, when you're really tired, your skill levels will go down, and you'll actually become like worse as a player because your body's too tired to perform techniques correctly. And obviously, as I've already said, the coaching who teach you the techniques is really important. Inappropriate warm-up. So inappropriate warm-ups can cause the muscles to be stretched too far, the muscles not to be stretched enough because the warm-up's too vague, or no warm-up at all, which is the worst possible thing. Now, how can you warm up correctly and prevent any injuries? Now, you can warm up making sure that you are not going to have an injury, so you can stretch every bone, every muscle in the body that you're going to be using. And you can, so you want to have a correct warm-up, which is basically you want to go through a pulse raiser, then dynamic stretches, and then you want to go through an activity that will get you in the correct mindset for the game. Now, being in the correct mindset for the game is important, as it makes sure that you're ready for any contact coming in and you're ready to get stuck in. Yeah. Preventative measures. So these are procedures such as risk assessments to make sure that the place where you're playing is actually safe to play in. Now, how do preventative measures prevent injuries? So basically, things such as risk assessments, they make sure that not only the area where you're playing, but the equipment, the coaching, everything is safe for you to work within. So this is a key factor to use when you're going into exercise. Now, I'm finally going to go through the gait analysis, which is, as I've already said, it's how you assess whether you want to run or walk. Now, the difference with the effects of gait analysis is, in intrinsic risk factors, is that it can cause an injury through poor technique running. So if you're a sprinter and you've been taught the wrong technique, your running gait analysis is going to be different, and it's actually going to cause an injury, as you'll find out. And now, how can you use gait analysis to prevent injuries? So you can use gait analysis to assess how you are actually training and make sure that your technique is correct. And gait analysis can allow you to do that. And finally, thanks for listening and enjoy your day.